With the husband of that kidnapped California mom. ABC's Matt Gubbins sat down with Keith Papini in Redding, California. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, George. I spent about 4 hours with Keith Papini, and the excruciating detail he describes about what his wife went through wasn't just revealing, it was disturbing beyond anything that we've heard so far.
This morning, Keith Papini opening up about his wife's 22-day captivity.
I thought about her being there, screaming my name.
And describing to 2020 his wife Sherri's helter-skelter release.
She was bound. She had a chain around her waist. That was correct. She had a bag over her head. Her left hand was in the vehicle, chained to something. When she was...
Make sure she didn't jump out of the car.
She was chained anytime she was in a vehicle. They opened the door. She doesn't know because she had a bag over her head. They cut something to free her restraint that was holding her into the vehicle, and then kind of pushed her out of the vehicle. And she has, at this point, has no idea where she's at, and then ran to the freeway.
But motorists kept whizzing past her.
She screamed so much. She said she was coughing up, like blood from the screaming, trying to get somebody to, stop. And again, just another sign of how my wife is. She's so wonderful. But she's saying, well, maybe people aren't stopping because I have a chain. It looks like I broke out of prison. So she tried to tuck in her chain under her clothes.
This morning, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office revealing new details about Sherri's alleged abductors, described as two armed Hispanic women. The sheriff says suspect number one had curly hair, a thick accent, and pierced ears.
Suspect number two was the older of the two suspects. She had straight black hair with some graying color.
But the big question still remains. Where was she held? What was the motive? And was she specifically targeted, or was this a random act?
You cut their hair, you beat them. You're really talking about behavior of what a cult or an extremist group would use to break somebody down.
Now, investigators tell us they're starting to work on a composite sketch of those suspects, but Sherri says she only saw their eyes. She was hooded most of the time. So investigators say they're working on digging out the other details. Did she hear a train nearby? Was she close enough to it to feel the vibrations? What did the room feel like? Anything to get a break in this story.
Boy, it is such a strange story. Okay, Matt, thanks very much. Let's talk to Dan Abrams about it right now. So these details are piling up, chilling details about her captivity, more on the captors as well, but also so many big questions still remain.
Oh, there's no question that all these questions remain, but that's what the investigation now needs to focus on, which is who are these people? Why did they do it? And I think that's the most important question. You heard Matt refer to it, which is what was the motive here? Was she targeted? Was it random? If they can figure that out...
Doesn't seem like they're any closer on that right now.
Well, look, we don't know, right? I mean, the investigators are going to try to keep certain details close to the vest on this. But those are the key questions that they need to assess.
You mentioned keeping the details close to the vest. The sheriff did seem a little bit concerned that the husband's interviews may somehow compromise the integrity of the investigation.
Well, he actually said that, right? And you can understand from the investigators' perspective, they're saying, look, we don't want the public at large to know everything. Why? Because in a lot of these high-profile investigations, they get tons of tips, they get tons of coming forward, and they want to be able to assess who has real information here, who actually knows something, who may be a real suspect. And the way to do that is to keep certain information private and secret. Now, from his perspective, from the husband's perspective, you can understand why he wants to go public, right? I mean, a lot of people are still saying, come on, this must be some sort of hoax.
Even though the sheriff keeps saying no, we have no evidence.
That's right. No evidence to suggest it's a hoax, but you look under this case on Google, for example, the #1 search term is related to a hoax. So you can understand why the husband wants to come forward and say, not only was this not a hoax, but this was absolutely horrific for her, and please understand how difficult this must be.
And then
for
what
her.
you also see is at times the sheriff has contradicted some of the claims that the husband is relating, but he doesn't directly criticize it.
Well, that's right. And there's small, it seems so far, the contradictions have been relatively small because most of the details have been accurate, it seems. That's why the sheriff is not happy about it, right? Meaning if you're getting all sorts of details that aren't accurate, it doesn't really matter. The problem for the sheriff is when you're getting all this information, which of course the husband would know, these accurate details, then the sheriff has a little bit less to work with in terms of information that the public doesn't know. But I sympathize with the husband in wanting to get it out there, even if the answer is yes, it makes the investigation a little harder. When you have people around the world saying, oh, this doesn't make any sense, I don't get it. And the husband's position is, my wife was branded. My wife was in chains. You can understand why he wants to get out there and say something about it.
No question about it. Dan Abrams, thanks very much. And you can see more of that exclusive interview with Keith Papini on a special edition of 2020 tomorrow at 10 Eastern.